Hello. I'm going to do my checks and I'll be with you in a moment. Hold on, please. We're going to have a very good show today. We always have very good shows, and this is going to be no exception today. It's going to be a very, very nice show. So let's go ahead and get everything dialed in. If I can get everything dialed in, that would be really good. Oh, there we go there. And let me go ahead and get us going over here. Okay. We have some people in the house, and that's good. Yes. And let me get this going, and we will be ready to rock and roll. I guess rock and rolling is a good thing. Hello. Okay. We got everything going. We're good to go. And we are going. My name is Lynn David Livesey. I'm your full spectrum Gnostic. We are good to go. We got a very exciting show for you today. We're talking the Black Eyed Kids. Okay. Whatever happened to them? They was everywhere for a while. They was doing everything. Then they just fell off the radar. So we're going to talk about them from the sweet or not sweet beginning to the end of the Black Eyed Kids. Nobody talk about them anymore. Okay. Wonder what happened to them. But to do that, we have to go back to the beginning. How far back are we going to go? Are we going to go back to Adam and Eve? Are we going back to the Anunnaki? Are we going back so far? Oh boy, we're going really far back. We're going back when the Anunnaki first came here. Okay. You know, the Anunnaki is those who came down that came from that planet Nibiru. Okay. When they came here, according to the records, the old ones was here. They had clover feet and leather skin, and they worked with them. Now, how do you work with dinosaurs? I don't have the slightest idea. Did they have dinosaur culture? Today we think dinosaurs are dumb, but the secret, all movies are secret society. The secret of the Jurassic Park movies is that the giant dinosaurs was very dumb, but those small dinosaurs was kind of smart. And the Velociraptors had a brain the same size we have today, had same kind of eyesight we have today, but they think they're hearing. They even think they was able to communicate in some way. Did they have culture? Did they build houses? Did they have shopping malls? We don't have the slightest idea. But the Anunnaki worked with them, the old ones, until they blasphemed against the gods and were destroyed. Now, how do dinosaurs blaspheme against the gods? I don't have the slightest. Maybe they ate a few of them. I don't have the slightest idea. Okay. Well, then I thought we were talking about the Black Eyed Kids. We're getting there. Hello. Okay, and then after the old one was destroyed, and what work were they doing? They was mining gold for their home planet, because their home planet had a hole in the atmosphere and they needed gold to fix the hole. Okay. Now, after the dinosaurs was destroyed from the surface of the earth and driven into their underground caves, you didn't know that. Okay. So that means inside they didn't get all of them. They only exterminated from the surface of the earth and drove them into their underground caves. Okay. The Anunnaki found the work very hard and difficult and refused to work. Now they had a strike on their hands. So they decided to create the new ones, which is they took a primitive primate creature and they started to experiment with it. And they tried everything. And when I say everything, they tried everything. But they could not get it to do more than just the most basic of tasks. It could not stand totally straight, and his hands was not straight. And they could not talk. I don't care what they did, it was covered with hair. And they tried everything and nothing worked. This is why we got all this junk DNA. Okay. We have 10 times, every creature have a little bit of junk DNA. We have massive amounts of it. Because when they say they tried everything, I mean they tried everything. And when they was getting ready to throw in the towel, they decided to do one last experiment. They took an egg of one of those primate creatures and they put it inside of one of their women. And when it was born, the hands was straight, it was hairless, and it could speak. That was called the alpha, what we call today the atom. Okay, that's how we came into creation. They took the alpha back to their home planet. He had to put on the suit and everything. They introduced him to their main god or king, and he gave them permission to start production. And they kept the secret of how they created him from their king. And the secret of why they kept the secret of how they was able to create the alpha is because by putting the egg in one of their women, it grossly deformed the woman who had the baby. But to start the new project, they needed volunteers. So they had the one volunteer already. They asked for 6 more volunteers. And those 7 volunteers became the 7 mother spirits that created the 7 original races on this planet. That's very scary. Today, none of those races exist. We all got blended together. But, once upon a time, there was lots of races. Now, Lynn, what did this have to do with those black-eyed kids? Okay. That's where we are today. We're human, but we was made as workers, and they made us different colors so they would know which mother we came from. That's why we're different colors. Okay. You didn't know that. Now, all things repeat itself. They tried to wipe us out once before because they got tired of us. That was called the flood of Noah's day. And if it wasn't for Noah or his real name, we wouldn't be here today. You get what I'm saying? Because they got tired of us. And the second reason they wanted to get rid of us is because the king, El, discovered the secret of how we was created. And he thought that we was an abomination and he wanted us destroyed. But thanks to Enki, we survived. He told his servant to make a ship and the whole 9 yards, and we survived. That'd get us past the flood. But Lynn, what did this have to do with the black-eyed kids? Okay. They're tired of us again. And in the year 1870, an occultist in Germany wrote the book, The Coming New Race, talking about in the future a new race was going to be created with the power of the Vril, V-R-I-L. Okay. And this is when the project to replace us started. And they started working on our replacements. This gets us into World War II. Hitler was an occultist. You didn't know this. Okay. Hitler was deep into the occult arts. He belonged to 2 giant occult organizations, the Thrill Society and the Real Society. The Reals was in contact with some people inside of the earth that had veil rods. Okay. And he was also in contact with some people from the star Aldebaran that he was getting secret information from. Okay. What's the star Aldebaran? It's the in the constellation Taurus is the eye of Taurus is the star Aldebaran. Okay. He was in contact with them, who we call today the Greys. But he didn't know they were the Greys. They lied to Hitler. They told him that they were an Aryan race. And in the late 1930s, you're going to find it shocking. The Germans sent a ship over there. They gave him the technology to visit them. They tried several attempts. It wasn't until near the end of the war that they were successful, because they was looking for a place to go because they was losing the war. And that's when they found out the truth, when one of their ships finally made it there. And a message was sent back. No one is human here. Okay. That's when the secret came out. Lynn, what did that have to do with the black-eyed kids? Now, Hitler was into the occult. He knew that mankind was going to be replaced. That's why Hitler was into what is called the swastika. The swastika is not a Nazi symbol. It is a Hindu symbol. The swastika is the wheel of time. There's the left-handed swastika and the right-handed swastika. The left-handed swastika it means God controls the wheel of time. The right-handed swastika, which the Nazis took up as their symbol, they interpret that as man-controlled time. And since Hitler knew through the occult books that the human race was going to be replaced, he was going to be the one who was going to turn the wheel of time, and he was going to bring about the new race, which he referred to as the new Aryan race. Okay. But those other people were still working on the other side. And it took them an extremely long period of time. And we knew nothing about this project. A lot of people thought it was just fantasy. We kept hearing that they was working on our replacements. We wasn't sure until in the 1950s and early 60s, people started talking about seeing babies in jars. And these babies in jars looked at human, but not quite human. Then they started seeing babies in like containers that was bigger than babies. You're getting into the late 60s, early 70s. Then people started talking about how they were seeing, along with these aliens, they saw these aliens with bad hair. And these aliens looked at like aliens, but they didn't look exactly like aliens. They looked at like half human, half alien with bad hair. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They didn't finish with their beta testing these things until they became widely on the scene in the 80s and 90s, where the black-eyed kids emerged in large numbers. The project was complete. Our replacements was done. The black-eyed kids was designed to replace us. They was created by the Greys. They was brilliant. They could communicate with their minds. Their eyes was black, just like their alien friends. They could communicate without thinking. They could stare into your eyes and hypnotize you. Okay. They tried to make them, since they was going to interact with us. And the aliens was already abducting people. They tried to use them as a friendlier way of abducting people. And they tried to make them where they was distinguished, where we couldn't distinguish us from them besides for the eyes. Boy, that didn't work. Because and there's a lot of pictures of people seeing these kids around that time in the late 80s, the early 90s, up into the turn of around the 2000s. People were seeing these kids. And these kids, even though they were supposed to be human, people knew that they were strange because they had no facial expression. They never really talked. They would stare at you and you could feel like they could read your mind. And they would come up to you in your car and say, I need to get in your car. They would knock on your door and you open the door and there's this kid with no expression, no feeling, no emotion saying, I need to come into your house. Can I come into your house? Most people slam the door on them. Most people are very nice to kids. It was something about these kids. Nobody had nothing to do with them. The only reports we have is people that said no and drove off and slammed the door and whatever. We have no reports from the people who let the kids in. Because once they got into your house or your car, game over, man, because once they got you, with their eyes, they could hypnotize you and you didn't remember anything. So we have no reports. And this went on for basically 10, 20 years. We have no reports. There's lots of reports of people seeing these kids asking for rides, these kids asking to get in your car, these kids knocking on your door, wanting to come in your house. We only have reports of people saying no. And when they would slam the door and come back, the kid would be gone. And sometimes there would be 2 or 3 of them. But they all described the kids the same. No expression at all. It's like and when they looked at you, instead of you saying, oh, there's a kid at the door, this was like, I don't know what this is, but this is definitely not a kid. It looks like a kid, but it's definitely not one. And I'm definitely not letting this in my house. But how many of these things was let in? And the people that let them in, there's no reports. Because once they got finished with you, you had no memory of what happened. So, what did they do if you let them in the house? We don't know. Did they come in your house and you and them sat and watched Netflix together, or did they come in your house? Or we have no records. We only have records of people who refuse to let them in. This is what is so scary. Now, the Greys like these beings because they did. See, the problem with man, we are loved and hated by the gods. Because we have the full spectrum of emotion. We can love universally. We can give, we can show such love, affection, and devotion. But we can also show such hatred and disregard and brutality at the same time. And they love us because of that one end of the spectrum. We are so loving and caring, and we make love songs, and we do this and that. And this is talked about in the Urantia book. When you go to government-run planets. Oh, you didn't know there was other planets out there? Oh, there's a lot. We live on something called an elementary school. There's lots of other elementary schools out there. You don't know it, but there's lots of them. Most of them are government-ran. Okay. And government-run planets, all education, all religion, all science, everything has to do with progression. Mental, spiritual, and emotional progression. Life is orderly, logically, everything is rational. I guess it would be like going to Vulcan. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Okay. The problem is the Earth have never been under government control. We have always been a rebel help planet. This is why so many of our alien visitors love to watch us and observe us, because this is better than watching Netflix. This is better than this is like a sitcom that never ends. And they can hang over one of our cities. Like they can float above Mexico City or Bangkok, Thailand, and you got the richest of the rich and people living and dying on the street right next to each other. And they get along peacefully. And you got cities that have no, they're laid out in no pattern. There's no organization. You got total chaos. And people still seem to get up, do what they need to do, go to work, come home, and go to sleep every night. And they can't, and they're scratching their heads. How can they do that? And we've been doing it for thousands of years. Okay. I bet you if they was hanging over Afghanistan over the last few days, they were scratching their heads. The Taliban been fighting 20 years trying with the thing of if they take power, they're going to do this and that and whatever, and how they hate America. And then when they get the power, they're going to let the Americans leave peacefully. Okay. And they're like, what the hell? Okay. They don't get it. We have the full range of emotions. We are totally uncontrollable. We are the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. Okay. And we're totally unpredictable and we're totable. And they have tried to do everything. Going back to the Garden of Eden, we have been rebellious. We have never done anything that we were supposed to do. Okay. We have never listened to authority. They have sent representatives. In case you don't know this, from upstairs, they sent a representative to this world every 2,100 years to try to put us on the path. A major prophet is sent to this world every 2,100 years. A minor prophet is sent every 300 years. And this has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And what have we done to most of these prophets? We killed a lot of them. Okay. Okay. We've done everything. Some of them started religious movements, this and that and everything else, but it still have never changed society. Even though we call ourselves Christians, we still doing everything. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Okay. And our favorite thing we love to do is religious groups fight over which religion is more peaceful. And we're willing to kill and slaughter each other over that. Okay. They have never been able to work with us. And now they're petrified, pardon my French, shitless, that we might leave our blue marble and take our craziness out there into rational, controllable, logical space. Boy, their hands are shaking. So they had this idea, why don't we just you know, why don't we just replace them? And it took them 100 years. How many millions of trillion? Who knows? But they finally finished with their creation. Now, we're going to talk about what their plan was. It didn't work. Their plan was, this is why you have always heard about these zombie movies. Because The Walking Dead is secret society films. They talk about something in The Walking Dead that nobody pays attention to. That everybody on Earth was in the zombie virus did not come along. It was a part of our DNA. And for some reason, something turned it on. You probably missed that episode. They've talked about that a lot. It is not that a comet hit or we bit something or there contamination. Everybody on the earth is in the DNA. And since everyone has it, when you die, you automatically convert into a zombie. There's no way to stop it. And in the episode when they did go to the CDC, they was trying to find a way to get around it. But since it's in the DNA, there's nothing they can do. There's a lot of things in our DNA we don't know about. Because the reason why the red button is in our DNA, because which I've talked about before, this is heavy Gnostic information. You may not be ready for this, but I'm going to tell you. When you look at the evolution of a horse or a dog, it's a wave. And you can see how horses and dogs or cats or elephants have changed over millions of years. Okay. When you look at the evolution of us, we are not a wave. We are a tree where every species of human that have ever existed came from nowhere, lived for so long, and then all of a sudden it died out. And then another branch started and it lasted for so long and died out. And the branches never touch each other. And they don't know how the branch gets started, and they don't know how the branch dies. Perfect example of this is Neanderthal. They was around for 250,000 years. They thought Neanderthal was just in Europe. Now they know that Neanderthal covered the entire earth. They was everywhere. They buried people. They found Neanderthal. They was very brutal people. They was super huge. 250 pounds. They was massive. They did not hunt their prey like we did. Primitive man used to use bow and arrows and spears. They used to use clubs and try to beat animals. And they would suffer massive injuries. And they have found Neanderthal skeletons with 3 or 4 leg breaks and 2 arm breaks, but they healed perfectly. I guess they had Neanderthal hospitals. Because if you break your arm in 2 or 3 places and it healed back perfectly, you must have had a cast. And while your arm was broken in 3 places and took a year to heal, somebody must have fed you. And we have found Neanderthal skulls that have giant cracks in the skulls, and it seems like somebody puts a plate or something. It was doing everything. Okay. And then all of a sudden, they're gone. They was everywhere, and then they was nowhere. And they just vanished. That's what they was planning on doing to us. They got that big red button. If they pressed that big red button, we would be in the dirt very rapidly. This is the reason when the Garden of Eden was started, they wasn't supposed to leave the garden because there was others outside the garden. Not like Adam and Eve. They was the new race. The old race, maybe Homo Pithecus or Homo erectus, was outside, and the goal of the Garden of Eden was to expand it to cover the earth. And they got rid of these, previous models. Okay. What they was planning on doing with the black-eyed kids was the same thing. They was going to set up a new Garden of Eden for them, and while we're dying off of the zombie virus or dying off of this or dying off of whatever, they would be multiplying and taking over the earth, and the earth would just magically be theirs. Okay. This is very scary. And the problem is we didn't get a vote. Did anyone ask us, hey, are y'all tired of being here? Do y'all mind being replaced? Did Neanderthal get a vote? Did Homo Pithecus, Homo erectus, all those other ones, did they get a vote? No. There's something called life carriers. Your Rantra book talk about it. They are the ones who control evolution on planets. They decide. The problem is the beta testing of the black-eyed kids was done. How come we're still here and they're not? Before I answer that question, let's look at the comments, see if anybody got anything to say. Oh my gosh, what a cliffhanger. Oh my gosh, I'm on the edge of my seat and he stopped talking to read what comments people have. That's terrible. Okay, we got a lot of people in now. Even Lisa's in the house. Hello, Lisa. I haven't seen you in a while. And we got a lot of people in the house. I want to say thank you for everyone for attending and listening to the podcast. And I really appreciate, we need to get our attendance up. You need to share this with everybody. But let me get back to our subject. Since I left you on that cliffhanger, okay. They put the black-eyed kids to the test in the early thousands. They passed every test perfectly. They did not have the crazy range of emotion like we do. They're totally obedient. They totally do what they're told. They don't have rage and all this other stuff. They're not rebellious. They're not this. Oh my gosh. I hate having one of them in your math class. Okay. Because they passed all the tests perfectly, they flunked. They do not believe the black-eyed kids have free will. They believe they are programmed. They believe they do not have free will and free thought. Because my analogy is, if you take a classroom of kids, and even if you get those kids and you study with him every day, and they take the SAT and everyone in that class get a 100, they all cheated. Okay. It's that simple. Because they're not geniuses. I don't care how hard you go over the test with them. If everyone get 100, they're all flunking out. This is what happened to them. Because no one want to love a robot. That's the reason they have created robot dogs, and you can have a robot lover, and you can have all kind of stuff. Nobody want to sleep with a robot. Okay, nobody want to sleep with a sex doll. People are mad because their wife never do what they tell them to do. You would love to have somebody that was totally obedient, did everything you want, but Is that love? What is that? That's the reason why we're still here. So the black eyed kids have been withdrawn. You don't see them anymore. They're I'm not going to say they turned them all off, but they're officially helpers for the Greys. They probably will not be put in full production. Maybe they're going to put them in production later. Maybe they're just tweaking them. In another 50, 100 years, they'll be ready to go. Okay, but anyway, they're going to stick with us for now. That gives us time to get our acts together. Okay. And that's the reason they're going to allow us to cross. We don't know how close we came to extermination, to elimination. We need to get our acts together. Now, changing subject. The one good thing about these black-eyed kids is that it gives us a glimpse into the future evolution of man. Not that we want to go around with totally no emotion and no this and no, that's totally no fun. I'm definitely not doing that. But at least these kids could communicate without opening their minds. They could do a lot of things. They could like stare at you and, and you could hear in your head, I want to go with you. Open your car door. Let me in. And they're staring at you. And you're like, oh my gosh. Maybe we will have the power not to do that. But we got this thing between our ears that doesn't work. We can run, the mile and do all this stuff and all this other crazy stuff, but we can't add 52 times 38 in our head. And science can't understand why. Our brain is the world's most powerful computer in the world. Every scientist will tell you that. The goal of all computer makers is to one day make a computer equal to the human brain. How come ours doesn't work? They estimate we're only using 10% of our mental capability. If we was using 20, 30%, would we look like those kids? That is extremely scary. Okay. And is that what their goal is, to get us to be where we just, walk straight and they say do this or do that? Yes. And we'd never question and never argue and never this. Oh, that's what everybody wants their kids to do. But this is very scary stuff. Very scary. So we've been given a breather. So did they remove the black-eyed kids just to fix them? And they're going to come out with black-eyed kids 2.0? Okay. And will they pass the test? How much time are they giving us to get our act together? It took them 100 years to make 1.0. We need to take this very seriously because they're very worried about the damage we can do if we leave our planet. And we're getting to the point where we're beyond the point. They have already decided to let us cross reluctantly. I guess they took a vote. We didn't have a vote, but they decided for now to let us cross into, we're going to get past polar shift and the great calamities that's going to happen over the next few years. Okay. This is what wiped us out last time. Last time they let us perish. This time they're going to let us cross. Okay. But when they let us cross, what's going to happen? What great calamity is approaching us? Why they was working on with these kids is because every 12,500 years or so, our sun sheds its outer coat and a massive explosion. And since we live on the surface of our world, it does slight damage. Okay. And that's the reason why in the book of Revelations it talks about that the sun will turn black and a third of the grass will be burned and a third of the water will be undrinkable and a third of the ships will be, because when that black wave hit the earth, it's going to be really bad. Temperatures will probably go to 300-400 degrees. Okay. And that's going to loosen up, and that's called polar shift. We have a podcast on that. If you don't know, you can look on YouTube. Or, it's there. You can find it. Okay. About the 7 days. That is what we're approaching. That is what destroyed the world in the flood of Noah's day, or what science called today the end of the ice age, is when all of North America was covered by ice, that giant heat wave and all the ice melted at one time. Ocean levels rose by 400 feet. That was the Great Flood. Okay. And the world was new. This time, since there's not a lot of water in the world, when that heat wave hit, is not going to be absorbed by the ice. That's the reason this time the world will be destroyed by fire. Okay, because that heat wave is going to hit. Okay. But they're promising to save our asses since they're going to let us cross. They was going to let us not make it, and our replacements was that beautiful little girl right there. Okay. But now that they're going to let us cross, on the other side, that's the reason these people from the future keep talking about how there's all these terrible things are going to happen. World War III is going to happen. But after that, everything is going to be quickly rebuilt because we're going to get help, which doesn't make any sense. How could everything get destroyed, but everything's going to be quickly rebuilt because we get help? And then we're going to live in a future that we could never imagine. Okay. Because they and us will be together. I guess we better be good at that time. Okay. Now, what things are going to be like over there? I don't have a slide to say that. What will happen? And we have a lot we have to think about. If we're not good on the other side, and if we continue to be rebellious and start wars and this and that and yelling and screaming and burning and doing everything we love to do because we're just out of control. That's the best way to call it. Okay, the human race is out of control. Okay, if we don't get to the point of controlling ourselves mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, will Black Eyed Kid 2.1 be released? And there's already several books that's talking about the return of the Black Eyed Kids. You didn't even know they weren't even here anymore. And there's books talking about their return. And we don't want them to return. Because if they return, they're returning to replace us. This is not good. Because I don't want to be replaced. Maybe you don't mind being replaced. Maybe you got somewhere else to go, but I don't want to be replaced. Okay. So, it's not like we're going to get a vote on this. And this is the bad part. These people that are doing the voting, that doesn't sound very democratic. They're deciding our fate, our destiny, the future of humanity, and we don't even get a vote. And who are these life carriers? And how do they judge, you know, when they was ready to get rid of Neanderthal and bring about, Cro-Magnon that turned into Homo sapien? Who made that decision? And we can't even fight coronavirus. What happened if they pressed the red button and oh my gosh, my hand's just trembling just thinking about it. Okay. See, if they wanted to get rid of us, they could do it so quick and so rapidly. It's just like the Black Plague in Europe, just like what happened to the American Indians with the smallpox. The Black Plague killed an estimated 50% of everyone in Europe. Smallpox in North America killed 60 to 80% of everyone in the Americas. 60 to 80%. And we're crying about a coronavirus that have a death rate of 1,000th of that. If we got hit with something like that, okay. What will we wear masks? I don't think a mask is gonna work. Okay, I really don't think so. Okay. And the Black Plague, just like smallpox, when Black Plague went through, it would hit an entire town, and in a family, you would have a family of 10, 12 people living in a house. 2, 3 of them would survive. And why those 2, 3 and the other one, it didn't make no rhyme or reason. And they was never able to figure it out. It's not like only the old people died or only the sick died or only this. It's just like, everything else. This is why I think, this is how you can tell something that is natural from man-made. When nature is it just goes across society. It doesn't just take the black people or only the poor people or only the gay people. It just goes across and just, it's just like hitting the lottery. Okay. It's just like the draft. Okay. And how come all my friends got drafted and I didn't? It doesn't make any sense. Okay. But this is what we're facing. So if we're planning on hanging around and if we do not want to get into Black Eye Kiss Part 2, and I didn't like Part 1, but if you don't understand what I'm talking about, Google it. There's several books out now talking about the return of the Black Eye Kids. Okay. Because they're not here anymore. They're gone. I just explained why. We don't want them back. And the next question is, what happened to those people that let them in their house? Did they just get abducted? Did they do medical experiments on them? What did we don't have no reports, because once you let them into your car or your house, you have no memory. This is the same thing with aliens, with the Greys. If people don't remember seeing the Grey, they remember turning and seeing this being, and the second you make eye contact, game over, man, game over. You don't remember nothing until eye contact is broken. So they remember this creature. They turned and saw it. And then the next thing they know, uh, the ship is leaving. They have no memory between those 2 points. That is awesome. So what kind of power is that? Are we that gullible that they could just stare at us and we just go Fruit Loop? Okay. Maybe we need to wear, instead of wearing a mask, maybe we need to wear sunglasses or something to protect ourselves from their eyes. Okay. And their eyes is like all piercing. Terror. So this isn't very not good. So let's see real quick before I go any further. If anyone have anything to say about they met the kids, or boy they wish they could have invite them over to their house or something ridiculous like that. Oh, okay. And the people ask the question, Lynn, have you ever seen any other black guy kids? No, hell no, and I do not want to see them. Okay, because if I saw them, I would probably look into their eyes and oh my gosh, I wouldn't have any memory after that. You know what I'm saying? Is there anyone out there that has had a personal experience with these kids? But they have been recorded all over the world. That's the reason there's pictures of them, because they've been captured on surveillance cameras and people take pictures and this and that and everything. But no one have never had a conversation with these kids. No one never asked them where you live, where's your mommy at, or anything like that. Okay. It's not funny. Okay. There is so much we don't know. There's just so much we don't know. And things are very, very scary. And over the next few years, we got to survive the roller coaster ride to go from our age to the new age, the golden age, or what we want to call the future age or whatever. But as I told you before, when people try to look into the future, they can't see, because the world as we know it do not exist. And again, this is what these people from the future keep telling us. They keep coming back to warn us about things, but they won't say anything. The only thing they say when you ask them, does America exist in the future? They say yes, but it's different. We don't know what that means. We ask them, do you still have how is society? It said, oh, society, you can do things that you can never imagine. You have the freedom to do so many things, but you have no privacy. Everything you do is being watched. You can do everything, but you have no privacy. With no privacy, you don't want to do anything because you can't enjoy it. You're too busy looking over your shoulder, see who's there. That doesn't sound that good. And if their future is so effing fantastic, why do they keep coming back looking for old parts? We're not going back in the past looking for parts from the 1930s and 50s. Why are they coming from the future looking for old computer parts when their future is so advanced? Maybe they're lying to us. Maybe their future is not that advanced. Because why would they need old parts that we have? We don't need no parts from the 30s or the 50s. We don't need it. Why are they coming back to the future to get old parts from here? And they talk about in the future, there's no war. Everybody get along. See, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense because maybe we are controlled. Maybe we don't have, society is different there. Because if the aliens are living among them, maybe they rule everything. As they said, you have the right to do anything you want, but there is no privacy. Maybe you have no privacy. Maybe you got that chip, or maybe who knows what technology they got back then. But we need to prepare ourselves for this future, because this future is not for me and you. I won't be there. Our kids will be there. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to look across and see a little bit of it. But we have a lot of work to do if we're going to still be around. And this is what scientists are saying, that where we're going, there's no way the human race can survive another 100, 200 years. Okay. We're going to deplete all the food in the ocean. We're going to deplete all the oxygen and deplete the rainforest and deplete everything within the next 100 years. Okay. So there's going to be a big paradigm shift. We don't know what that's going to be. We don't know a lot of things, but we have to survive. And we need to get to the other side. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope the information that I presented to you, you found enlightening. Unfortunately, I do not have a lot of answers. We all have to go down that dark road to get into the future. I wish I had a way of knowing, just like you do, but we don't know. But we need to make tomorrow a better day than today. That's all I can say. And I want, I don't want to be replaced. We need to learn how to control our emotions, and we need to learn how to get along with one another before we start thinking about interacting with our space brothers and sisters. Okay. Because if they have to choose between us and them, they're not going to let us destroy all of space. They're not going to let us do that. They're not going to let us take our craziness out there. We need to get our act together. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Share it with all your friends. And I wish to see everyone very soon. Join my Facebook page. You can see me on YouTube. On the Spirit Rim Network, they have a lot of more exciting shows besides for mine. And I want everyone to have a very nice week, okay? Thank you so much. I hope to see everybody again very soon. Bye.